A very chilly New Year to everybody. I know I've said that a bunch, but this is the first movie of the new year. I've seen other movies in 2018, but this is the first movie that was released in 2018 that I've seen, so it's the first review of 2018, even though technically this movie was released in limited release other places in 2017, but I wasn't able to see it in 2018, so I count it. So, a lot of new here. I'm sporting my new Drive Home Reviews sweatshirt, which is cheap as hell. I'm sure this is all going to chip very quickly, but I don't care. Also, my new co-host. I want him in a claw machine, so, I'd love to find some way to get him up so people could see him, but, that's the thing when you drive. Alright, so this one has been gaining a lot of prestige, a lot of critical acclaim, Oscar talk, all that good stuff. And, as I watch this film, what I'm reminded of is I always hear these things about cinematic fatigue of various types. For instance, the one I hear about a lot recently is comic book fatigue or superhero fatigue, that people are just exhausted and tired by all the superhero and comic book movies, and I can totally understand that. I don't suffer from it necessarily, but I totally get where it comes from. And watching this film, I kind of realize where my fatigue is. I have fatigue for a lot of them, but I think I have one majorly, and I have history film fatigue. It's not that there are a lot of them. It's not that, we're inundated with them in the same way we're inundated with, comic book movies or, cheap horror sequels or whatever. But the fatigue I have is I just know when I go and see them, for all the bluster and all the critical acclaim and all the Oscar bait, and make no mistake, this movie is Oscar bait from start to finish. But despite all of that, in the end, I'm going to be left with the exact same messages that I have been inundated with since I was in high school. For instance, did you know that the Nixon administration was a touch shady? I mean, what? Did you know that the government lies? I know, right? I'm going to give you all a second to collect your thoughts after that bombshell. So yeah. I feel movies like this don't do much for me anymore in the way they did when I was young and I was seeing them for the first time. So maybe for the young high school student or young college student or people who are big history buffs, maybe they're going to get something more out of this. For me, I just felt it was the same gift, just in different wrapping. I left with no further insight, no further knowledge than I had when I went in. And I think that's a big blow against it. This is one of those films where it's not a bad movie, but I still didn't like it because I don't feel like anything is different for me. The only thing different is that, and this is the good thing with a film like this, is that I had never heard the full story of the Pentagon Papers or knew what they were really. I'd heard them in passing, in a couple classes or in a documentary here or there, but I didn't actually know, what they were and what the whole story behind it was. So from that angle, so learning that little bit more of history was, that was good. But in terms of the story they were telling, again, nothing new. normally a really talented director like Steven Spielberg is, and a very talented cast like he had, can hide their cliches a little bit better, and this one didn't hide its cliches too well. And I'm kind of surprised by some of the things I saw in here in terms of performances. I'm going to be honest, and I know that I'll probably be shunned by all society for saying this, but I have never really been that impressed with Meryl Streep as an actor. I have never really I'm straining to think of a performance of hers that I've really enjoyed, and I can't come up with one. So I feel she's a touch overrated. And in this film, I feel she's very over. I don't like it when I can see an actor acting, and you could just tell everything she was doing. None of it felt organic or natural. It was it was all so carefully scripted and carefully planned out, and maybe I think that's good for an actor to do to a certain extent, but if it doesn't look like the person is doing any of it naturally, then you're not acting, you're just reading the lines. It's the same problem I had, with James Franco in The Disaster Artist. I don't consider what he was doing acting. He was putting on a funny voice. That was it. Now, to be fair, as I say this, I must be fair, because I learned from this movie that it's important for the press and the people reporting things to be honest and fair and true. Again, another thing that I never realized before in my life. But anyway, to be fair, she does have this really, really good monologue about middle of the film, when she's decided that they're going to publish these reports, even though the government and the Supreme Court and all this has told them not to, and they're going to do it anyway. She has this really nice monologue with her daughter about how she never intended to be put in charge of the company that she's in charge of. Her father, who ran the company, had turned it over to her husband, and she thought that was the most natural thing in the world at the time, so this whole thing of being a person who never asked for power or asked to make these decisions, so that was a good bit of acting. So I must tip my hat to that moment, and say that was very well done. The only downside, well, there's two downsides. Number one, I wish the whole movie had felt like that, and number two, the power of that moment, probably would have been stronger if I hadn't keep seeing in my mind the words Oscar clip, Oscar clip, Oscar clip flashing below it. Tom Hanks, who I will normally tell you is one of, not normally, I will tell you, Tom Hanks is one of our greatest living actors. Tom Hanks is brilliant, and I can think of no movie I didn't like him in. Even if the movie is terrible, I can't think of movies I didn't like him in, and I liked him in this movie, except for one minor thing, which is so weird. So they keep saying, his character was good friends with JFK, which I assume is true, which leads me to believe that the guy Tom Hanks is playing was also from New England. And every now and then, not consistently, which is weird for Tom Hanks, but every now and then, he'll get a Boston accent and then immediately lose it. Like every now and then, he'll start talking like this, and then immediately it's gone. And it was like, where did that come from? What happened there? So even though he's good in this and I like him, this is not his strongest performance because of that. And it'd be interesting, I don't know if I ever want to watch this movie again, but it'd be interesting to watch it again and see was he only doing it when he got agitated, and maybe the accent only came out when he was mad or something like that. Was that a choice? It'd be interesting to see again, just to see that. But again, I don't think I'd want to watch the whole movie again just to discover that. Spielberg he's at his usual competency. He's a brilliant director, 2-time Oscar winner. I mean, you can't say Spielberg's not one of our greatest directors of all time. And he does some really neat things here. There's some he does a lot of tracking shots, I think is what they're called, where the camera will just follow the action and there aren't a lot of cuts, which I always like when a director does, because I like when a scene can flow like it does in a play, just because I'm a theater guy, so I like that element of it. And he did that a lot, and I'm trying to think back to some of his other films, and I can't think of any other films where he's done that a whole lot, or where it's that obvious. But I liked a lot of the tracking shots. I mean, it's well directed. You can't say Spielberg doesn't direct well. It's just so okay. There are a couple directing choices, and one particularly that I must talk about because it's so out there that it just makes me laugh, and not in the way they wanted to. So, first of all, let me talk about one of the cliches. So, first shot in the movie is, them at one of the reporters in Vietnam and kind of reporting on the ground and going in. So, of course, it shows the title, where they are in Vietnam in the year, and it comes up. And, of course, the first thing they're doing is playing that same, 70s rock song they play in the background of every Vietnam movie. It's like, you've got John Williams writing the score. Why don't you just have, some of his music there? But no, we had to go. It's like a law. If you're filming a movie that takes place in Vietnam, you've got to have one of these 5 songs playing in the background. Otherwise, you may not film this film about Vietnam. So anyway, there's an example of a cliche. But here's the thing, and it only happened twice, but here's the thing that really got me in terms of directing choices. So a couple times they cut to the White House to kind of play what I assume, I don't know what these are. I don't know if these are actual tapes, some of the Nixon tapes or not, or if these are actors pretending to be these people. I don't know, but I think whether they were authentic or not authentic, I think what they wanted you to feel is that you were listening to the authentic tapes. So they play these tapes with these phone conversations of Nixon talking to some guys about, the security breach and all that. And so the camera is set up outside the White House and it's like shooting in through the window. So you only see the back of the head of the guy playing Nixon while they're playing these tapes. So they're playing the tapes. It's clearly not the same actor talking. And the guy is on the phone and he's doing all these big gestures and all this, while the thing is going on, while the audio is playing. And it reminded me so much of when Larry David would play George Steinbrenner on Seinfeld. You just kept expecting Richard to go, "George, you gotta come in here. We gotta find these Pentagon papers, George. Oh, we gotta do this, George. Big Stein wants to find these papers, George." It was so bad. It was especially the one at the very end where Nixon's like saying, "I never want another goddamn person from the Washington Post in the White House. Never. And the guy's gesturing so emphatically front, and all you see in the back of it, all I could see was those scenes from Seinfeld. So Cinema Sins, I'm pretty sure when this one comes out, you do everything wrong with this movie. I think you've got one of your cut scenes there. I've given you that one for free because I'm sure you all watch me. So yeah, that was just so weird, and it looks so bad. It's like, Spielberg, how did that get past you? So yeah, so that's a thing. Okay, here's a good point in its favor, I guess, since I'm kind of being really negative here. And I always like movies, and I like elements of movies that take place kind of in this point in time where reporters are reporting and they're getting their sources, and I always find that really fascinating. Them, getting a story and getting a scoop, and all that and everything that goes into it, and the writing and the researching. I love movies when they do that. It's and I don't know. I guess it's just it harkens back to that time when the reporter news really held a lot of sway. You know, it was important stuff, as opposed to, you know, what we have now, where you write down any asinine thing you want, pro or con, and you find some website, you slap it up, and there you go, you're a journalist. You know, so I always like those films where they kind of show that the process the way it used to be and how important the news was at that point in time. I wish we could say it was that important now. I don't believe it is. News is kind of noise now. So yeah, as I'm watching this film, the thing that kept running through my head was, you know, the one of the commercials, you know, because again, Oscar bait. They're begging for Oscars. Almost every scene in this is begging for Oscars, and it's probably going to get nominated. It's probably going to win a lot of them. But anyway, I remember one of the advertisements for it, you know, talking about all the great reviews it's gotten, and one of the reviews said something like, you know, it moves like a bullet, and the only thing I can think of is, yeah, it moves like one of those bullet time bullets from the Matrix, which goes very slow. You can clearly track the path it's taking, and you know exactly where it's going to end up. And that's this film, which it's perfectly serviceable. It's not bad, but given the director involved, given the prestige of the actors involved, given the weight of the story involved, I was kind of hoping it would leave me with more. I'm not sure what it would leave me with. You know, I kept comparing this film in my head to another film that came out, oh God, must have been 10 years ago at least, because I think I was still living in Alaska. I was still living in Alaska when this film came, called Good Night and Good Luck, of Edward G. of Marrow. Now I'm going to get his name wrong. I want to say Edward G. Marrow, but that's not right. But anyway, the reporter who called out the McCarthy hearings and was told that they're going to come after him and they're going to accuse him of being a communist. Edward R. Murrow. There we go. And him saying we're going to go ahead and we're going to do it anyway because, you know, the fear's right here in this room. And I don't know, that film made me feel like I left with more knowledge and like they did something different and told me something different. And I can't tell you just, you know, off the top of my head what it did different that this film didn't. But I just feel like, again, history movie fatigue. I've seen it. I know the moral. I know the lessons. You're not telling me anything I don't know. Oh, before I go, okay, one more thing I got to say. It looked like for a real quick second, like this movie was actually going to have like a really interesting subplot that had never been done before. One of the big conflicts in this is that the lady that Meryl Streep played, she was good friends with a lot of these people, a lot of the presidents and a lot of the staff who, you know, orchestrated the whole cover-up. So one of the big things that was going on in her story is, you know, reconciling, you know, that these were her friends that had lied to her and lied to the public, and now she was going to expose them, and that was weighing heavy. And at one point, she goes and talks to one of them. And for a second there, I was like, okay, now this is going to get interesting, because in all these films and stories about the Nixon White House and all that, and again, I say not unfairly, but all of these, everybody involved in any government movie, really, is always portrayed as this sneaky little snake, this evil human being, this bastard who just loved putting one over on the American people. It's what he was going for, and he's just so happy he did it. And I thought for a second they were going to do something different and go, okay, we're going to hear this guy's side of the story. Why did they do this? Why did they, you know, perpetrate this cover-up? They wanted you to believe, you know, that it was all to save face, that America didn't want to appear to lose a war. And I don't know if I believe that. These guys are politicians. You're telling me they couldn't have found a way to spin pulling these guys out if they wanted to? but they're always portrayed as so evil and conniving, and I get because their decisions cost the lives of millions of innocent people. So I mean, I can see why, but I was interested to know what was their reasoning, because nobody does something like this if they don't believe it's the right choice. I honestly believe that. As twisted and backwards as the choice may be, people in that position, I want to believe, at least think they're doing it for the right reasons, or they have motives. And I thought for a second there, we were actually going to see and hear one of these people's motives and their reason, and see the story from their side, and see them not as some slimy snake who's just out to do evil for evil reasons, but as a person in a impossible situation who made the wrong choice, but understand why they made the wrong choice. I thought we were going to get that, but we didn't. We walked up to the line and they chickened out. They went back the other way. The government and everyone in it is evil, and all the news reporters are good, noble soldiers who are out to defend liberty and justice and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this is not coming from somebody who believes the government can do no wrong. Trust me, folks, I watched the X-Files just like everybody else did in the 90s. I read the papers. I read the internet. I know the government is fucked up. Full of fucked up human beings. So don't anybody come at me with, well, you're just defending the government. No, what I'm saying is that in terms of dramatic structure, there's a story that has never been told that I have seen that might have actually been interesting. But instead of that, we got watered down versions of the same morals we have always gotten. And on that, I have been giving you the same moral over and over and over again, and I'm sure we're all tired of it. I actually had to extend this out because I just remembered that thing, that last bit. It's the problem with doing these just off the cuff, is that you think of all these great points, and then you're wrapping up, and then you think of another one. I need to get this in here really quick. So anyway, you've listened to me talk long enough. This thing is going to get nominated for a lot of Oscars, and it may even win a few. But honestly, folks, I mean, if you're a history buff, yeah. If you're a young person who's never really seen a movie like this, then yeah. But otherwise, guys, if you've been around for any period of time, if you've taken a U.S. history class any time in the last 20, 30 years, you know all this. You know what's going on. You know the moral. So I don't see as there's any reason for you to rush out and see this one, and I don't think that you're really going to be morally poor if you don't. So I would have liked to have started 2018 out on a more up note, but the year is young, and we are going to see some great movies this year. So thank you for watching, and as always, drive safe, especially in the next couple days, because we here in Tennessee are apparently going to get another hit of winter weather. So for God's sakes, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.